Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of One Take. So, today we're going to take a short trip down Jason memory lane and flashback to a conversation I had a long time ago with my father. And it was about politics at the time. And I promise you, this conversation is not about politics. It's not about a political view, anything like that. So please continue to stay tuned. But we were talking about politics. It was around an election time for a president. Don't remember who, don't remember when specifically. But we were talking about different things and reasons for voting and things like that. My father and I had always been typically on the same path, if you will, from a voting perspective. But it was interesting because he told me, he said, Jason, I find myself becoming a one issue voter. And I said, well, what do you mean? Or how is that even possible? There's so many issues out there. And he goes, I find myself becoming a one issue voter. And he told me what that issue was. And I agreed on it and it's important and its importance and we agreed on the approach of it. But he said, I find myself becoming a one issue voter because if this one particular without this one particular issue, nothing else matters. And it got me thinking a little bit because I kind of agreed with him, but I also felt at the time there were other issues that, maybe that it shouldn't just, the one thing just shouldn't guide him. But he stuck with it. We chatted for a while about it and it was interesting. And I thought about it again randomly a week or so ago, and I forget even why, but it's been some 20 years since the conversation. And all this time, I thought it was a conversation about politics. And then it hit me. It was a conversation about core values. My dad, this was one of his core values. He said that this one thing drives the others. And without this, none of the others matter. And it got me back to thinking of one of Jim Collins' books where he promotes, he says, preserve the core, stimulate project, whatever. Pro- yes. But what was interesting is that it's exactly that. It's that it's preserve the core and stimulate progress. That's it. Meaning that if you stay true to your core values, the reason you are who you are, and as a business, the reason why you're in business and the reason for being in business, if you preserve that in everything you do, but make everything else sort of negotiable, meaning that stimulate that process, look outside the box, do different things, you're ultimately going to be okay. Because as long as as soon as that new stuff starts veering away from your core values or starts pulling it away, you stop and sort of reset, you're going to be okay. So similar to my dad's conversation, it was a conversation about core values. And to him, this was a core value that drove him. And as long as that was secured, everything else was a little bit negotiable because of how much this one core value drove. And we can look at business in our lives the same way. And I did that when I started these one takes. I wrote down core values, who I am, the core values of the one take. And I go off in different tangents and do things all the time. It's kind of random once in a while, but it always follows those core values. And I never steer away from those, but I'm open to everything else. So think about that in your own lives, in your own world, and particularly in business, and keep that door open for change and possibility as long as you're preserving that core value, core values, whatever, however many they are, because that is what keeps you who you are. That's what maintains what you are, not the change that makes you better. And that's one take. Make it a great day. Thanks.